Hey, good morning. Thanks, Jerry, for the introduction. My talk today covers emerging consensus and market forces. However, these are two phenomena from the same fundamental of nature, which is emergence. First, some background. I'm coming up to 4 years of involvement in Bitcoin, and all along I've been inspired by its potential to reforge the world's financial system for the better. I assumed for a long time that the biggest challenges Bitcoin faced were external, from governments and mainstream finance. However, I now think internal challenges are more pressing. Bitcoin Unlimited exists to meet those challenges, as a new and a holistic approach is required. Okay. Who agrees that cryptocurrency is the future of money? Indeed. No one believes that the fiat system will continue long term, even more than a few decades. Quite possibly. So this is why I like the CoinMarketCap website. It provides a single place to keep a finger on the pulse of the revolution in money. What I watch now is the percentage here called BTC Dominance. So if crypto is the future of money, then isn't this the most important number in world finance? More important than the gold or oil prices, because it measures what will shape the remainder of the 21st century. The market gives an 80% probability of success to Bitcoin having that role. If we assume that crypto replaces fiat sometime in the coming decades, then we need to know what others are in the ascendancy. It does not matter whether a new crypto comes from the decentralized community or a government agency. To succeed, it needs an exchange rate, a market price, therefore it will affect this percentage. When Bitcoin was launched, it was 100% of the crypto world. This percentage hovered in the 90s for a few years, and now it's languishing at 80% today. So it's suffering from the ill effects of central planning. Development is out of touch with the majority of user requirements, and worse, new users are not wanted unless they have a high pain threshold for transaction fees. The only new Bitcoin users are those who push out old users who have a lower pain threshold. In recent months, the network effect has stalled, and there is a clear choice forward for Bitcoiners: support free marketeers or support central planners. So what's wrong with central planning? The father of Austrian economics, Ludwig von Mises, explains it well. Where there is no free market, there's no pricing mechanism. Without a pricing mechanism, there's no economic calculation. Here are two grocery stores photographed in 1990, one in Vilnius, Lithuania, and the other in Houston, Texas. Ex-President Yeltsin of Russia and his wife are suitably impressed by the variety and quantity of free market products. Central planning replaces free market decision making with the decisions made by a committee of experts. Production and supply chains can only work effectively in the presence of a free market balancing demand with supply, giving accurate feedback to producers. Central planners do their best to succeed, but the Mises calculation problem is beyond any of them. The curse of central planning is that every single generation believes that they can succeed at it, where the rest have failed. And we're seeing the same in Bitcoin today, just as we have seen with central bankers. So what is the free market system that keeps the Houston shops well stocked? Corporate capitalism harnesses the free market rather than fights it. So abundant evidence exists. In 120 years of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, this index was created by Charles Dow and Edward Jones in 1896, with just 12 constituents chosen to capture the breadth of the US manufacturing economy. Here are snapshots at 30-year intervals. Red, orange, yellow, green and blue mark the first appearance of each company in the snapshots. We can see how the top 12 are turned over due to competition and technological advances. Government intervention can be good or bad. Standard Oil and American Tobacco were broken up in 1911 for antitrust reasons, whereas General Electric, the only survivor in the top 12, was recently bailed out. So here, the Bitcoin mining landscape shows a similar pattern. The top 10 miners ranked by hash rate in annual snapshots taken in late July each year, you can see that Slush is the only major survivor. And Kano is an early miner, but only this year makes an appearance in the top 10 snapshot. So the Bitcoin miner turnover is 20 times faster than the Dow Jones top 12 companies. So note that also that mining pools are the good guys, as they enable small individual hashes to compete with large solo miners. After nearly 8 years, Satoshi's plan for mining is clearly a success. So while natural selection in competing companies is a key feature of the capitalist model, something else is even more important. Efficient price discovery. This is a daily chart of Bitcoin USD FX rate, commonly known as the BTC price, for the 2 months until mid-September this year. Only the entirety of the market, all consumers and producers and their intermediaries and supply chains, have the detailed knowledge about their own individual circumstances, costs and cash flows. So these feed into a diffuse and collective assessment of value for any product or service at any time. Prices are forward-looking, as buyers and sellers factor future expectations into present value, with a decaying influence out to a time horizon. Moving averages have the illusion of prediction, but are backward-looking using historical information. The efficient market hypothesis posits that all information is in a given market. Despite getting a hard time, this hypothesis is broadly correct, and algorithmic trading only makes profits at the margins. Cryptocurrency is notably superior to fiat as money because exchange rate variation is much less for crypto than crypto fiat. The free market price of any good is an emergent phenomenon. Emergence is everywhere in nature, from crystals and snowflakes to the spiraling shape of galaxies, macroscopic properties of liquids to weather patterns, anthills and living organisms. The graphic here is by the anthropologist Richard Seale, is an abstraction of emergence in human cultures. All aspects of culture, language, standards, markets, cities, politics, etc., is emergent from the interaction of individuals or collections of individuals. Emergence begins at A with discrete entities, which could be molecules, insects, humans, or even Bitcoin nodes. At B there is interaction. A construct emerges in C, transcending the entities. It could be a vortex, a beehive, a market price, or a block size limit. Finally, in D, there is top-down causation, shaping the behavioural characteristics of the individual entities. Causation takes varied forms, like natural selection or adaptive information control. Emergence drives self-organisation, and it can be hierarchical with many layers, such as in multicellular biology. And reductionism fails at first base because not even all the layers are known. So Ishihara's slides are used to test colour blindness. They have pattern emergence, but they're too simple for top-down causality. The consciousness you experience in your head right now is at the other end of the scale, hugely complex, emerging from low-level interaction of billions of neurons. Top-down causality is obvious considering the power of conscious action to perform activities, thereby modifying memory and personality stored in the neurons. So weak and strong are subjective terms used to classify emergent phenomena depending on whether they can be modelled or not. So bird flocking is a classic example of emergence, and everyone has seen formations in the sky like V-shape of geese or swirling clouds of starlings. The key point here is that high-level order can emerge from individuals following a few simple rules despite having no understanding beyond immediate pairs. So the rules for birds: be attracted to birds of the same type, avoid collisions with neighbours, travel in the same direction, observe 6 or 7 for reaction alerts. So emergent consensus on the best block size limit for the Bitcoin network will occur when full node software also follows some simple rules. It doesn't matter if the variables are different, just that the general rules are the same. BWIP 001 creates a separation between the block size that can be made and the block size that can be received. How? In the example here, the orange block is mined larger than the excessive block size for many nodes. A miner quickly produces a smaller block at the next height. A BU node will put both those blocks on probation by not processing or forwarding them. In this node, the acceptance depth is 3. Only when the excessive block is buried under 3 blocks will the EB size, will all blocks be accepted. 3 blocks are mined on the excessive block and the network continues the chain including the excessive block. Once the acceptance depth is reached for a specific node, then it fully participates in the network. At all times there will be a subset of nodes which are not participating. Generally the population evolves. Here the excessive block attracted one further block, but the fork was overtaken by another without the excessive block. Usually the situation is only likely if the excessive block is a record size block larger than any seen so far by the network. Record blocks might occur once a week on average in an emergent consensus network for block sizes. So, welcome to Bitcoin full node poetry. BU node owners can advertise their settings to improve network transparency. This keen big blocker is set EB20, but AD1 is much better than AD72. Sybil nodes may advertise higher or false limits, but emergence only arises from nodes which fully participate in the network and have a separate economic footprint within the ecosystem. Emergent consensus does not have to move smoothly. In fact, it will change in a punctuated manner due to node owners choosing values at shelling points. The BU default settings are already proving now to be a shelling point. Most of them are choosing EB16 as the default. So what does an emergent limit look like? This graphic shows the main attributes of a centrally planned block limits compared with an emergent one. In each case, the emergence proves superior and is more optimal for the network. An emergent limit cannot be known at any time, just approximated. It's forward-looking as it relies on full node owners' future expectations of their node capacity, and it's also influenced by non-mining nodes as it reflects the wider ecosystem capacity. So I mentioned at the start how Bitcoin's network effect has been arrested, and this is a failure of central planning. A limit imposed by software developers has created a situation of chronic undercapacity. Peter Risen made this chart last year which neatly indicates the Bitcoin block market. Suppliers of space are miners and demand is from users making transactions. Balance is to be found at Q star, where the miners won't include further transactions as the fees are lower than their costs. Central planning reduces block space capacity, causing a deadweight loss where miners are not receiving fee revenue and fee-paying users are being turned away. The decentralization of the Bitcoin network is at high risk from undercapacity because volumes can't grow, the number of users is stalled, hence the lack of investment in new nodes. Users who are priced away from the blockchain will not run nodes which support it. High fees are now being paid by users for a limited service, but it's a temporary until the market adjusts. The market adjusts by using supply substitution. In this case, the deadweight loss is made up for by altcoin usage. Any large system has inertia in usage, so this process does not take place instantly. Bitcoin has been in a state of chronic undercapacity since the middle of this year, and every day that passes sees the global cryptocurrency marketplace slowly adjust. Likely by the middle of next year, the adjustment process will be fully complete. This will mean that the current high fee levels will fall back to levels seen before the undercapacity occurred, levels in 2015, and worse, Bitcoin's overall market share will have fallen further, and the same inertia which prevented an early supply substitution will also prevent any switch back to using Bitcoin even if the limit gets increased, so permanent damage is done. So central planning is a failure yet again. So what free market options are there? The obvious free market solution is that miners allocate an optimum amount of block space supply as a function of commercial competition that they have with each other. And we have seen how the mining market is indeed efficient. So this is a good solution, far better than central planning. Examples are a universal miner algorithm such as BIP 100 or the BitPay adaptive, which is a block size limit multiple of the recent median. Another option is no limit for blocks. This makes Q star optimum for miners and users, but miners are not the only nodes on the network. In fact, they're the minority compared to non-miners. The cost of node option, or CONOP, mentioned by Fluffy Pony, is not equal between mining and non-mining nodes. Assuming non-mining nodes are weaker than miners, then some non-miners are pushed off the network by overcapacity. So decentralization here is at risk from overcapacity. A better solution is emergent consensus for block space supply by using software such as BUIPO01, which permits top-down causality by adaptive information control to regulate the prevailing block size limit for all participating nodes. Like Qmax becomes the effective limit and it's optimum for the non-mining network, and decentralization is at low risk from undercapacity. Like a market price, the emergent consensus block limit reflects all node owners' current capacity plus future expectations. The pesky altcoins are back again because demand exists which is not mineable. There will always be altcoins with less decentralization, lower costs to handle the rump end of transaction flow. But why should they even get that? There is one more change needed for the most optimal solution. Node services payment channels are the final piece of the puzzle for the Bitcoin network to self-organize capacity and node counts. By strengthening the non-mining network, the emergent block size limit will be large enough such that Q star is accommodated. And Q star is the optimum for the whole network, and decentralization is at no risk from capacity issues. So all these slides assume that user volume will grow. Because Bitcoin transactions pay fees, then spam is easily defined as transactions which are below the marginal cost for miners to include. So if emergent consensus is so good, why don't we have it today? Why doesn't it emerge? Critical mass. This hairball on the right is a schematic of the Bitcoin network. Some types of emergence already exist from it. The network effect of a growing user base and a growing market price are cultural phenomena emergent from a functioning and reliable network. What is not emergent is protocol behavior at a high level, such as the prevailing block limit. The Bitcoin network's a perfect substrate for higher order emergence and top-down feedback. It's a major advantage to make use of it. Emergence fails when the required properties are absent or suppressed in most entities. There are 4 components to the competitive landscape on and off-chain scaling for Bitcoin and its best altcoin competitors. As volumes increase, then Bitcoin's ability to compete on-chain becomes an ever larger handicap. Most of the off-chain scaling work is being done by Bitcoin Core development, so they are opening up the competitive landscape for off-chain solutions, which is largely closed to the altcoins today. Bitcoin's future is clouded by centrally planned economics. Altcoins will support block limit increases, Lightning Network, sidechains. The altcoin set is a very powerful adversary because it benefits from natural selection. From the point of view of Bitcoin, it's irrelevant as to which altcoin prevails over its rivals. So why do we care about Bitcoin's future? Equitable distribution. Bitcoins are spread into more hands more evenly than alternative cryptos such as Litecoin or Ethereum. This is the importance of the whole ledger itself, as global distribution takes time, can only happen sustainably through market processes. Early investors steadily cash out while new users come on board, and this leads to a virtual result. More users drives a higher unit value for the currency. If Bitcoin is going to be the currency for 1 billion users, we want to see the red and the blue lines go as low as possible. So to conclude, the most successful cryptocurrency will harness emergence and market forces both on-chain and off-chain in the most optimal manner. So questions are welcome. Thank you.
So we have maybe 5 minutes worth of questions. So anybody?
Yeah, could you go back on the slide where you have the supply and demand curve and the quota?
The mining quota?
Like where you have the supply for miner and the demand curve, and you have a line for the quota, and you show the deadweight loss.
Right.
Yeah, this one. So I think there is like a very relevant information that is missing from this.
Okay.
From this diagram and enlighten us a bit more about what's going on. If you look at the Qmax line, you see that on the supply side, it crossed the supply side at some point, and this is like how low in price the supplier are willing to be. And then you have a second point, which is where it crossed the demand line, which is how high the buyer is willing to pay.
They're not buyers and sellers, that is block space.
Yes.
So,
and vertical, it's going to be the price.
yeah, vertical is the price and Q is the quantity of block space.
Yes. So if you limit the block space, then if you look at the Qmax line, the vertical one, you see that you have a discrepancy between
Qmax
supplier, the price at what supplier are willing to sell and the price at which buyer are willing to buy. And so it gives the opportunity to create a ramp in between. So if you draw a horizontal line between the two cross points, the surface area you have in between is basically the quota grant. It's like a reward for everybody that's going to be a parasitic behavior between the supply and the demand.
Yes.
Of the market. And that explains, like, I think that's like this existence of this quaterants explains a lot about the behavior of many people that want to keep that limit.
And if we go back one more, at the moment the deadweight loss is in place. We don't have the proper supply substitution, so we are seeing high prices effective in the economic surplus, but it is a temporary phenomenon.
So unfortunately we don't have time for any other questions to follow up, but
Please talk later.
find Andrew afterwards. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you, Jerry.